because now he's a household name. He's the man everybody's talking about this general election. Leader of UKIP, Nigel Farage is here. We saw a little clip of you earlier, and apparently you're more nervous about seeing us than Paxman.
Well, Dimbleby, Paxman, I can live with all of that, but I feel here, you know, I'm in the lion's den.
Yeah. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
And we're hungry.
Oh, no, please, have some mercy.
I mean, you're all across the news this week, as is David Cameron, because he has said he's only going to do one television debate. Do you think that he's running scared?
Yes. He is. He's sabotaged the whole thing. He's now said he'll do one debate, but he'll do it before the proper campaign starts.
Right.
So it's not going to be a proper debate. And Ofcom, the regulator, said there were four major parties in British politics: Lib, Lab, Con and us. And on that same day, he said, well, but surely the Greens have to be involved. And now there's going to be actually a debate, if it happens at all, with more people than we've got sitting on this panel here now. How is it going to work?
How would you think you're going to fare?
Well, it depends how much time they give me. I suspect, had it been a four-headed debate, there were one or two conversations I wanted to have with the Prime Minister that I don't think he would have been able to answer, and I suspect that's why they've sabotaged them.
OK. OK.
What would one of those be?
Yeah.
It would have been, Mr Cameron, you promised to control immigration, which is a key issue in this country. How can you do that when we're members of the European Union and we have an open door to 500 million people? I don't think he wanted to be asked that question.
OK, so here's my thing, right? I want to ask you about immigration, because obviously it is the hot potato. When UKIP was ostensibly just you, the clear message was very much Europe and immigration. You've now got a couple of MPs. You've got Carswell and Reckless. And it just seems to me, I'm a bit of a political junkie, and I keep hearing people from UKIP popping up all over the place, and there's all different kind of policies popping up now, and suddenly you come up and talk about immigration and talk about not putting a cap, which is what everybody expected from you, to put a cap on immigration. What's going on? It's starting to look, just as it gets important to the election, you're starting to look a bit rudderless.
The caps are nonsense. What we said yesterday was we want an end to unskilled labour coming into Britain in the vast numbers that it has in the last few years, because what it's done, it's depressed everybody's wages. It's kept those on minimum wage. It's actually become the maximum wage now for a lot of people. So if you stop the oversupply of labour, people's wages in Britain will actually start going up. We also said yesterday we want, you know, hereafter, to have an Australian-style point system where we take people under the age of 45 who've got skills and trades.
But I know that, but Stephen Wolfe was on saying, do put a cap at 50,000. So that was a week earlier, so it's a bit flip-floppy, isn't it?
No, because caps are useless. All these different caps and floors and ceilings, they're meaningless.
But Stephen Wolfe didn't get that memo, did he?
I want it to be lower than 50,000, to be honest with you. I want it to be between 20 and 50,000. That is my target range. But just to put an arbitrary cap doesn't mean very much. If we had the Australian-style point system, we'd have people coming to Britain who didn't have criminal records, didn't have life-threatening diseases, would bring their own medical insurance and not be a burden on the country. And I'm sure if we polled this audience, a majority here would agree.
Obviously, you know, you've done the Paxman, you've done the news, all these sort of things. We want to ask you questions from a sort of normal person at home, so sort of putting politics to one side.
OK, I don't really know much about politics, but can you tell me why you've been voted the most hated man in Britain?
That's probably quite a compliment, isn't it?
Is it?
Well, I tell you something. If you look at the political class that we've got, by which I mean the people that go to the same handful of schools, all go to Oxford, all do the same degree, all become researchers...
But you're one of them, aren't you?
No, far from it. All become MPs.
But you went to public school.
And... well, my life's been fairly up and down since then, believe you me.
Okay.
It's not been a seamless transition. And actually, we look at these political figures and they're all like cardboard cutouts. No one dares say anything or do anything. They're all playing safe. They're all scared of the media. I'm not. So I'm a bit like Marmite.
But that's also
people either like me or they don't like me.
But Nigel, you're not in the same position as them. Surely it's a lot easier and more charming to be in the position where you are, where you ruffle a few feathers and say things which are obviously very popular with people at home. But you don't physically have to do anything about it. Surely it's
you have nothing
you could have argued that about Nick Clegg before the last election, couldn't you?
But we're not talking about Nick Clegg, we're talking about you.
Well, What I want to do is radically change politics. And I think something's happened in this country. We have the 7... I mean, you mentioned public school. The 7% of people in Britain, boys and girls, whose parents are wealthy enough to send them to public school are now dominating the country in a way we've never seen before.
Sure.
Sport, the arts, media, politics, and the rest are being left behind. So we now have 2 Britons. And the gap between the wealthy and those without gets bigger with every single year. What I'm trying to do is to do something that will change that and give people an even break.
Right, well, what I want to talk to you about is your low self-esteem issues.
I'm so... being shy, you mean, that sort of thing?
No, not shy. We know you're not shy, but just a few days ago on Good Morning Britain, you actually said that you didn't think you were Prime Minister material, which I found really strange because I think anybody that looks at a person that's a leader of a party would want to imagine that they believe that they could one day...
Well, if I'd answered that by saying, OK, UKIP are going to sweep the board, win the general election, and I'll be the Prime Minister, and I'm looking forward to it, I'd have been laughed out of the room. UKIP is not going to win the election. But what UKIP is going to do is win a number of MPs, and given that no one's going to have a majority, we might just find ourselves in the same position that Nick Clegg was 5 years ago. And if we do that, I'll do a better deal than Nick Clegg did.
OK. So would you fancy being deputy?
I want to change politics. And there are 2 types of people in politics. There are those that want to be something and those that want to do something.
But yes or no to being a deputy?
It's not what I want to do. I want to change things, and I want to give the people a referendum so we can decide whether we stay part of the European Union or not. That is my priority.
Now, you've already kind of answered this yourself in one of your speeches, but I want to ask you again, because you kind of went quite low-key at the beginning of the year, and there were these rumours that you were very ill, which came up out of that. You have pooh-poohed them, but where did these rumours come from?
Well, I mean, they expected me to do what all the others did. You know, this is the first ever fixed-term parliament, so we've got the longest general election campaign in history. They all came out on January the 2nd, lobbing their artillery pieces at each other, being incredibly negative. I mean, just look at the way the newspapers cover Ed Miliband. You know, it is really vile. Forget the politics of it. It's personal, you know, ad hominem attacks. It's nasty. And I just took the view, the public, by the time May the 7th comes along, they're going to be so bored with this, better that I keep out of the limelight for a bit.
So you weren't ill at all?
I'm fit as a flea.
Fleas only last a year.
Well, I've only got to last until the 7th of May. That's the same. No, I mean, I won't be in the London Marathon next year, let's be frank. And my body's been fairly badly bashed up by 2 very big accidents. But given all of that, I'm in pretty good nick.
With that, with the, you know, we never see you without... I mean, we've done it ourselves today, introduced you as the beer-swilling, fag-smoking. Do you ever have any guilt about that whatsoever?
Look, I only spend 5 or 6 hours a day in the pub. That's all I do, you know. I can't see what all the fuss is about, really.
What is your... If I was your wife, I would be giving you a bad telling off for that. What does your wife think?
No, the thing is, I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, right, and I'm really home before midnight. I work very, very hard.
That's terrible. And then you smoke and drink as well.
But I think...
That's not a good example to the people.
Well, I think at lunchtime, I deserve a sherbet.
Do you think that's why a lot of people love you? Because you're very good with your beer and fag stories.
Well, those stories, that's what I do. I mean,
When do you get to spend time with your wife and your children?
Well, at the moment, I don't. And I was very honest about that the other day. I said, you know, you cannot conduct any sense of family life and do politics. Now, I noticed that the other 3 big leaders are very good at coming on programmes like this and saying what wonderful family men they are and how they do the school run, and when the babies were little they changed all the nappies and did the night feeds. Well, maybe that's true, but all I can say is my life in politics is pretty much impossible to do that.
You've said in the past, again, that your first marriage, part of it breaking down was your dedication to politics and not being around very much. You're obviously on your second marriage now, and we're hearing the same story. Is it all worth it? Is politics worth...
Well, I think people that go into politics and have got ambition, whether it's personal ambition or whether it's wanting to change things, I think by nature you've got to be a fairly selfish person to do that. So that's a story against myself, but I think it's the truth.
What's interesting as well, Nigel, is a lot of people do love you, a lot of people do hate
Thank
you.
Goodness for
called
that.
Well,
it's not all bad, you see.
No, not at all. You've called yourself fairly Marmite. You have quite a blokish image. What do you think that you could do to bring more women on board? Because you've said some fairly controversial things to do with women coming back into the workplace. They're not as useful to employ.
Well, they're disadvantaged.
Breastfeeding women.
In some. I mean, look, you know, if you're a doctor, a lawyer, a researcher, you're a woman, you have a baby, you take take 6 months or a year off, you come back, you're not disadvantaged at all in that job. But there are other jobs in which if you take 6 months off and come back, you find yourself actually behind the rest of the pack and earning less money. Now, that is a fact of life. It's difficult to change that. There are changes. I mean, there are now 1 million men who actually opt to stay at home and bring the kids up. So there are some quite big changes that are taking place.
Would you have done that?
Oh, sorry.
I would have been absolutely useless. I'm being honest about it.
Very quickly,
You know.
because we've run out of time. How many seats are you going to win at the election? And don't give me the handful answer.
Well, it'll be more than a handful.
No!
More than a handful.
Give us a number. Go on, be brave.
All right, it'll be in double figures.
OK, Nigel Farage, everyone. Thank you so much.